Lovely. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, everyone, for coming. My name is Paul DuBois. My name's up there. I'll say it again. I'll say my name again. My name's Paul, P-A-U-L, DuBois, D-U-B-O-I-S. The reason why I'm saying my name again is because I'm from Canada, so you may not understand me, but also I've worked a lot in business over the last close to 20 years in this country. And I notice that people throw their names away. Like, who here is good at remembering people's names? I'm not here to show you how to do it, because I'm terrible at it. I'll remember you, and you as well. What were you just eating there? Yeah, so I'll remember you. Like, if I ran into you somewhere in town, don't ask me your name, but I'll remember you. And the ability to remember people's faces is actually something that's only started to be explored. But the reason why I'm repeating my name, which is Paul, is because I see people throwing their names away all the time. And to me, it's like a verbal business card. Does everyone have their cards on them? Everyone got your cards? Some do, some don't. Because even that can be quite difficult at times, because we don't want to give our cards or we forget our cards. But before we get started, I just want you to be aware that if you want to communicate with impact, we've got to know your name. And I want you to think when you're meeting people in those first few seconds, as we've just met right now, we know people make a lot of decisions and choices about you, whether they're good or ill. However, whether you want them to remember you, at least you need to be clear about your name. And I know, because I've mentioned I've been in this country for 20 years, I'm from Canada, there are a lot of white, bald guys that look like me. I know I'm not that, fantastic looking. I mean, maybe, but if you get me at a good angle, maybe, right? But there are not many people that sound like me in this country. So I probably have changed my accent. I know I have changed my accent, but what I want you to think about, if you want people to remember you, it's quite useful to just be very clear about your name, but also bring you up. Because I could have changed my accent, but then people wouldn't remember me. But also, I wouldn't be truthful to who I am. And when we're looking in the workplace, or we're looking in the big bad world where everyone needs to be famous, or everyone needs to, do all these things at all different times of day, the main thing I find when I ask people to stand up and present, or do a pitch for a new process or a procedure, or for a new business, when I'm asking them, okay, right, why should I invest in this business, or why should I say to this company that you're the person they should hire or promote or invest in? When I'm challenging them, or the business is challenging them, one thing I notice regularly is people don't feel that they have the right to be there. And they don't want to bring their authentic self up. And so I want you to be aware that you need to bring your lovely accents up, wherever they may be from, whether it's regional, different parts of the nation of Great Britain, or international, but also be able to say your name quite clearly. And we'll talk briefly about little things that you can do to have a little bit more impact, but also people who say their name and say their name quite clearly tend to have slightly higher status. So one of the things that we use a lot to make decisions, and that we use for interactions a lot in the workplace and in business, is status. It's not necessarily conscious, it's slightly emotional, but it is part of this. So I just want you to be aware of it. And also, I'm going to talk briefly to you about the difference between men and women. I don't like to generalize. I don't like to say all men are like this and all women are like that. But there has been a lot of research to take a look at that. There's just some interesting things, particularly around communication. Did you hear the recent one? There's a recent bit. How many words per day do women say in comparison to men? Have you heard that one? I mean, that was done. About 30,000 words women will say. Men, it's between 5 and 10 at most. Depends how chatty you are. Okay, so that's an issue, right? Or is that? I mean, where does that come from? Well, they just discovered a protein. They just discovered a protein that is more common and in higher dosage in women's brain than men's, which causes them to speak more. So actually, in your brain, you're a bit more doped up to speak a little bit more. But the good news is, if there are some women out there who don't feel comfortable speaking that much, and maybe they do have low levels of this protein, well, just give them a bit more protein. And then if you're having problems at home and you're cooking dinner, just sprinkle in a little bit more protein. Never know, someone might open up, but it's quite interesting to take a look at how the brain is structured, how we are all different, but there are things that you can be aware of. And when you're looking at communicating, we have to be aware of the other people. So I'll just give you a little bit of understanding about how status has an influence in the workplace. You may or may not be comfortable with status, which is fine, because you have to use it carefully. So that's a little bit about what we'll cover. But to do that, I want to just know, and I'm going to put this model up here around looking at who has the right to speak. So in our society, who has the right to get up on a stage and tell you what to do? You, ma'am. I'm going to tell you what to do. And you, yeah, so I see you now. I'm going to tell you what to do. Who has the right to do that? What kind of people in our society generally? Me? People that look like, so male or female in our society? Male or female? Generally, historically. Men? Men. In a public environment, yeah? Age? 15 years old of age? 40? 40, 42 you say? 40 to 50, very specific. So middle-aged you're saying, yeah? Call me middle-aged? No? Well, you know, I looked like this since I was 12 anyway, so you don't know how old I am. Yeah, so middle-aged, male, what ethnicity? White? Yes, white, middle-aged, male. It's interesting in Britain. I mean, as I mentioned, I come from a different background, but it's also that demographic. You also look in the public schools as well. So you're looking at socioeconomic backgrounds as well with this. However, do they always have the best stuff to say? Are they that interesting? Come on, be nice to me. Be nice to me, it's Wednesday. Yeah, not necessarily, but the thing I want you to be aware of is you all have the right to speak. You all have the right to speak. Some people might take it quicker than others. Some people might feel that they've just been endowed with the right to speak, but it doesn't necessarily make what they are saying that much more interesting or that much more important. And even when we're looking at things like groupthink and stuff like that, where organizations get into ways of thinking where they don't want to challenge themselves or each other, we do need people who come from different backgrounds or have different points of views to stand up, speak, and challenge. For the last 10 years, they've been hiring the most important executives on the headhunting, the recruitment kind of world, are executives that have been fired. They are some of the hot people to actually hire, because we know that these are people that aren't afraid to challenge, aren't afraid to actually stand up, and aren't afraid to make an idiot of themselves occasionally, even though they may be in front of a lot of people with status. So I just want you to be aware, again, that you have the right to speak. A lot of times people feel that they shouldn't or couldn't or daren't, but you do. To help, though, what would we say, who are great speakers, though? Like in the media, in the public eye, who are people that we like? Famous people, just so most people know. Wait, who are you thinking of? You got a thought there? Either one of you. Both of you are giving me eye contact. Is there anyone you can think of? Of who? The Vice Chancellor of the Open University. Are you from the Open University? Yeah, we had someone in earlier. They're plugging the Open University as well, which is good. No, it's good. So what do they do? Great charisma? You feel it's real, it's genuine? Yeah, good. And that's also coming back to what I said before about you have to bring yourself up. You do have to bring yourself up. So if you're trying to be something else, then it's going to be very difficult, or people will see through it. Yeah? Get those people that are highly aware, very aware, and it suddenly becomes false. And this happens a lot with politicians as well. They might start with a sort of genuine and authentic belief, but then a lot of coaches and a lot of people say, oh no, you want to be doing this and not that. We all know about Margaret Thatcher, how she went one note below. If you listen to Margaret Thatcher, you can tell, as a woman, she's going one note below. Terrible for projection, but great for authority. Because as a woman, she would go higher, 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 higher. when she would get anxious, so she was trained to go lower, lower, lower. So just, be aware that the Chancellor's being himself. Anyone else? Any others? Margaret Thatcher I mentioned. What do you guys think of her? Yes, no? All right, yeah. Separating the politics from the person, maybe, I don't know. Good. Anyway, the interesting thing about her, though, she always had the same look. Always had a very much understood brand. Very much understood. The hair never changed, nor did the dresses. Different colors, but always had a handbag. Good, yeah, over there? Bill Clinton. Now, Bill Clinton. You like him? I bet you do. No, he knows a real secret. A real secret that I'm not really allowed to talk about. It's about being very much available to the audience, literally. And it's not, I don't even mean that in a rude context, but actually something, in this kind of work, you can't really talk about it with people, but it's a very strong truth. Celebrities know this very much in terms of that they want you to fall into each other. And he'll spend time with you. And you. And you. And anyone. And when he goes to an audience, he gets very strongly present. I'm just going to show you this model, which is very powerful in terms of having impact. And people who have very strong leadership styles do use elements of these. Now, with this model, I don't do all of these things all of the time, but sometimes it's really important to be aware of it. But Bill Clinton gets very present with his audience. He is in that room. He comes alive in front of an audience. Obama does the same thing. It's an interesting thing about Obama and Clinton. And even if you look at Hillary Clinton, sorry, I'm just going to move over here. With Obama is great in a large group, but he's also great one-to-one. Hillary Clinton, his wife, when she gets in front of an audience, she gets a bit more fractious. She gets slightly aggressive. People like her, she's got a good style, but it comes across a bit too strong. And if you yourself are a slightly assertive person, so if you err on the side, again, coming back to knowing yourself, if you're slightly a little bit too much of an extrovert, you gotta be careful of this type of behavior. Yeah, because sometimes it can be we think it's very powerful, but sometimes the audience might be going, okay, yeah, just where are the exits? Honey, get your bag. Right, because it's almost like you're trapped in a room. So you'll find with Hillary Clinton, she pushes a bit too much in front of an audience. But when she sits down in a meeting, she's very good one-to-one. Obama, guys like him? He's quite good. He likes to read a lot off the panels. So he likes to prepare, which is good. When he comes in front of an audience, he does connect to an audience. And what we're looking at here is he's paying a lot of attention to the audience. It's interesting, though, if you see him sat down in a meeting with someone, like a one-to-one or an interview, when he is being interviewed, and Michelle's there, his wife's there, actually, he's quite introverted. He's generally a fairly introverted person. And interestingly enough, a lot of politicians are quite introverted. A lot of actors actually are quite introverted. Very good film actors are very, very introverted. That's why they actually go into film acting alone. They don't want to be in front of a big audience. They'd rather be in front of a small group of people, and they use that character to kind of give themselves a little bit more impact. But just be aware that you have to be a little bit more clear about how you are with people. So to look at this model briefly, I want you to think about, are you right here, right now? When you're trying to sell an idea or communicate to a large audience, are you in that room with them, or are you worried about your next slide? Are you worried about that email that you've got to send, or the kids that have to be picked up in an hour's time? When you're walking down the corridor and they go, oh, you, yeah, hi, you, how you doing? Yeah, no, I'm good. Yeah, I am very, very, very good. I am not here with you right now. People with the greatest presence are present. They are there. And actually, you will find sometimes, I don't like to disparage people too much, but you will find that some people with fantastic presence, people that you meet in real life, they go, wow, I've seen you on TV, I went to your concerts, or I've seen you in front of millions talking. When you meet them, they're a bit thick. or they appear a bit stupid. I mean, they may not be. Maybe they might just be a bit, tired or whatever. But actually, there's not much going on. But what they're really good at doing is being very present with someone. Now, it may be a trick, what is intelligence, but, they're there. They're in front of you. And so I just want you to think a little bit about that. And if you are getting anxious, and all of us live in anxiety. We all live in anxiety. Some of us deal with it better than others, but when we're having to speak to an audience or speak to our boss or whoever, the anxiety increases. Just think about being there. You have solved all your problems, and you will say all that needs to be said. Yes, you need to prepare. You do need to get your information together. People do want some structure, but just think about getting in the now. And to help you do that, breathe. So we're just going to do this briefly. Can I get you to breathe? How you guys doing? You breathing today? A little bit? Please don't stop on my account, right? Do breathe. But one thing I look at a lot with people is how they hold their breath. If I want to look for anxiety, I look for breath holds, and for a lot of people, many people, it's in the shoulders. You can usually tell if any of you play poker. If you did, play card games, they're fun. They're good ways to look at people's tells. And the anxiety a lot of times gets shown by how they hold their breath. And so just the only known cure for nerves, other than alcohol and drugs, which I don't advocate, is to actually breathe. So just want you for a moment just to breathe. But while you're breathing, if you grab your belly, the good news is we like to have nice, relaxed stomachs. 6-packs are not required. But I just want you to see if you can feel any movement in the stomach as you're breathing. And if so, what's happening? So as you breathe in, are you sucking in? Or as you breathe in, are you getting nice and fat? What's happening? You may not even find anything's happening as well. So who, when they breathe in, is getting nice and fat? Raise your hands. Good. And the rest of you, I assume you're breathing in, it's slightly coming up? Yes? No? Okay, so just be aware what you're doing is two different types of breaths. The breath that you're breathing in and expanding, this is the yogic breath. So notice little babies. Anyone got a little 6-month-old? Any 6-month-old, 12-month-old? Right, keeping you up at night? Friends, family got one kicking around? Yeah? How do they wail? Do they wail through their throat? Their stomach pumps them. That's the all here. The work is here. As we get older, we tend to, and you'll notice if you've got adolescents, they're starting to breathe in their shoulders and breathing up, and this causes tension. So what I want you to think about, one for status means your shoulders are down, but as you breathe in, the stomach should expand forward. As you breathe out, that's where the muscles support the actual voice. So the volume does not come from the neck. Volume comes from the belly. Zulu tribes, African nomadic tribes, they believe that their vocal cords are actually in their groin area. And a lot of voice teachers would agree with them because it's actually quite low. So just want you to think a little bit about staying in the now. Expressive, what's meant by expressive? Did you want me like this? Yeah? All that kind of stuff? Moving around? Yeah? You like that, especially in Britain, don't you? Woohoo! Right? No, you don't like that. Yeah? Do you like me to use my hands occasionally? Occasionally? Or do you like me to put them behind my back? Or at the desk, I love tables, right? You all sit at tables, meetings? Like to have meetings, don't we? Yeah? Yeah, exactly. I love meetings. I knew I had to leave full-time employment when I went to a meeting about a meeting about a meeting. I said, can't we not just go? No. We got to have a meeting before the meeting. Yeah, I'll be missing that one. But meetings are great places to establish sort of authority or a little bit more status. So, but we got to get a bit more expressive. So what do we do with our hands? What do our hands? What can I do? Can I do that? No, because it's closed body language, right? Yeah. No. But why don't you guys show me? So why don't you stand up? Stand up. Don't hurt yourself. If you get lightheaded, because it can get warm in this room, obviously take a seat. Now, how does it feel to stand up? It's all right, isn't it? Bit scary. But you're thinking, what's he going to do to me, yeah? Don't forget, in Britain, the biggest fear is the fear of embarrassment socially. In North America, our biggest fear is the fear of poverty. So you guys would rather have people assume you're poor than be embarrassed. And you also don't like people to embarrass other people. North America, well, yeah, if you pay me, I'll embarrass myself and anyone. But I just want you to be aware that standing up, you've suddenly done a status movement. And now you're standing. Now, if you want to stand with a bit of authority, what I want you to think about is lengthening your spine. Lengthening your spine, not straightening it. The Victorians were obsessed by straightening the spine. What I want you to do is just lengthen it. So, now if I can do this, you all can. Yeah, you all look good. I want you to grab a few hairs where my scalp used to start, right at the very top, right at the very top. Don't do this in front of anyone at work or anything. But what I want, unless you want to get fired. Hello! But I just want you to think about just pulling a few hairs and then releasing it. And that, where that hair was, there's a golden cord or a thread or a bit of piano wire is suspending those curves. So you've got a curve here at the top of the neck, another curve just at the top of the shoulder blades, and then where the lumbar is. You want those curves. You don't want to straighten those curves. Good. But I want you to lengthen the spine. Stand to your full height. You know, some of the strongest performers in the world, Kylie Minogue, how big is Kylie? You guys like Kylie here. How old's Kylie? How about big? Here. Madonna. Here. So being small, you can still command, but one thing that they both know is lengthening. Lengthening. Now, you're lengthening the spine. Shoulders are down. So the one thing that can help you just be aware of is, can you bring those shoulders up and then drop them twice? So bring them up to the ears and then drop a second time. Good. Now imagine, don't do anything, imagine that your back is like a doll's back, where the back of the doll is nice and smooth. So the shoulders will then slightly be placed. Now be aware, are you locking your knees? Most people lock their knees. They hyperextend. This is hyperextension. We go back. Yeah, look, I'm standing straight. My knees are going backwards. Slight bend, slight bend. Good. Now, this may feel weird for some of you maybe not. This is just neutral. Get yourself hip width apart. Hip width apart the feet. Good. Now, this is neutral. Breathing from the belly. And I want you to think about a rugby player coming to tackle you in a bad way. Yes, in a bad way, right? So I just want you to think about being planted. Good. And the head straight on. Not this. This is low status, or in some cases misinterpreted as flirtation, especially when I had hair, right? Princess Diana did this a lot. But it was an interesting way for her to lower her status because she was supposed to have higher status. Good. Now, this is a weird thing to try. It may be difficult to do. You may want to turn around and face other people, but I'd like you to sort of scan the room a bit. However, people with high status do not move their heads. They move their eyes. So just see if you can see. Yes, it's very strange. Very strange. But yeah, they don't turn. They don't move their head. So the next time you're in a meeting, rather than going around and looking and doing all that, which is good and it's very inclusive, if you need status, if I'm looking at 3 or 4 people, I'm just going to think about not moving my head too much. Again, breathing just to relax. Now, I've been keeping you standing for a little bit. How are you feeling? It's okay? I'd like you to get a little bit more powerful, a bit too exaggerated, right? Now, for some people, this would be quite comfortable. I wouldn't recommend standing like this, but maybe like bluffing the chest out a bit. Stance, I call this the John Prescott. Yeah, it's a bit too, I like him, I think he's really good, but he even knows he has to kind of hold back, right? Because you throw an egg at him, he'll come right back at you, right? So I just want you to think about, getting kind of a bit too tough, a bit too bullshit, as you say here. And I just want you to stand there for a moment. It will feel uncomfortable. Hopefully you'll feel uncomfortable unless it's a very natural position for you. This is called a power position, right? Now primates, and you'll see some people who almost walk like this. They've done some research, and these power position people actually have higher levels, male and female, have higher levels of testosterone. So they find it very easy to compete with others, and they find it very straightforward to be a little bit more forceful at times. Yeah, testosterone. They also have lower levels of cortisol. What does cortisol do? It's the one that you need for life. If you don't have cortisol, you will die, so you need it. What does cortisol do? Sorry? I'm coming over. So I'm going to come over to my power gesture. Sounds like toothpaste. Yeah, of course it does. You can't taste it in your mouth. If you get a metal taste in your mouth, it's sort of a flat taste. That's usually, if you're really, really tired or slightly stressed, you can taste cortisol. Some people chew gum will find that it actually flakes away. What we're looking at here is with this high, keeping you standing for a reason. They did some research, and they actually did it with women especially. And they said if you don't feel comfortable and you don't feel confident, these power gestures, and these people that do power gestures have higher levels of testosterone, lower levels of cortisol. So they can deal with anxiety better. Let's get you just standing for 2 minutes. Let's just get you standing for 2 minutes. We'll do a swab of your mouth first and see what it is, see what your levels are. Then we'll get you standing. And what they found is after 2 minutes, pretty much everyone in the studies, men and women, found that their testosterone levels went up and their cortisol levels went down. And the interesting thing about this is if you don't feel comfortable, if you don't feel confident, sometimes just changing your body language can give you some biochemistry, give you a little bit of, the good drugs, the legal drugs, just to help you feel slightly better, especially in the workplace. While I've got you up here, I just want you to think a little bit more now. Go slightly even wider, maybe. Good, a bit too wide. Hands on hips maybe, slightly aggressive. Hey, how you doing? Hopefully this should feel slightly uncomfortable for you, yeah? Some people really push their pelvis forward or their chest forward, yeah? You see this behavior in bars a lot. Yeah, I like it. The hip thing comes out as well. That's the kind of female thing sometimes, but guys are doing it now, but especially with the shoes, right? What I want you to think about is this, if this feels comfortable for you, it could be too forceful. I want you now to do the opposite, and let's bring the feet in. Don't hurt yourself. Take it nice and easy. Let's maybe put your hands where they feel comfortable. Maybe here. Your pockets are good. Yeah, head maybe down a bit. Think about how you maybe sit on the desk sometimes, especially if someone comes up and wants to talk to you or they ask you a question. You go, who, me? Right? Especially on a cold morning before you've had a cup of tea. I kind of like this. But does this have impact? No, but it feels fantastic. And a lot of times speakers go, I don't want to do that. I don't want to behave like that because it's not me. It's not comfortable. Well, it's not about being comfortable. It's about communicating a message effectively. So I just want you to know and notice which you prefer, because this is okay at times. There are long days. 3 o'clock at work. At 3 o'clock, I used to go crazy. Do you guys go crazy? I start prank calling people and all sorts. I just couldn't do it. It's just like, this is so boring. But everyone has those moments where they have to have that downtime. So you will find yourself doing this. But when you're communicating, just come now back to neutral. I just want you to come back to neutral. This is, and do some slight adjustments. So whether you pull your energy back or in, as I mentioned, sort of Obama, he's slightly more introverted, pulls away, but knows he has to come forward in front of an audience. Or some people get a bit too, hey, how you doing? And then they have to pull back. I just want you to think this is where your presence lives physically. And to give you a bit of help, place your hands, if you're having to do a presentation in front of an audience, place your hands here, I'd say. For most people, placing here or slightly below, it doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter what you do with your hands. What are the options you can do? You can do this. You can do what's called the weave. Sometimes people are a bit conscious of the weave. It can show frustration. But, simple things you can always do is 1, 2, 3. Generally, if you're standing up in front of an audience going, I don't know what to do with my hands, I don't know what to do with these things, you're not connected to your message. Focus on your message and the gestures will come. You don't sit there in your normal life going, I don't know what to do with my hands. So that self-consciousness can be sort of helped by just placing the hands here. They'll do something, or at least they'll stay put here above the waist. This is when you're standing up. But also think about this A-frame when you are seated, when you're at the desk. So if I can just get you to sit down now, because you've been standing for a long time. Good. So how'd you sit? How does it feel to sit down? Are you present? Because people sit down all the time. People like to sit down. People get altitude sickness when they go up here. You know, they'd rather sit down. I just want you to think about when you're in a meeting and moving towards this area around status. I'm going to give you a few tricks before we go, but I just want you to think about status. People who have a lot of status, good status, I'm not talking about intimidating people, lengthen their spine even while seated. So when you're in a meeting, a lot of people sit to the back and try and make themselves comfortable. I would say sit slightly forward on your sitting bones, almost so that you can almost come forward. That way you're much more at the table. Much more at the table. And just being aware of lengthening and getting this triangle and getting the shoulders down when you want to be heard. When you want to be heard. If you want to disappear, that's fine. I see lots of people have that magical superhero power where they can just disappear when they're at a meeting. Nope, no one even saw me. Great. But I just want you to think about, if I need a bit more confidence or I'm not feeling it, I might just need to lengthen, sit slightly forward, and then also be aware of eye contact. And I'm going to talk about that now because us guys particularly don't like it. And I'll explain why in a moment. If you are sending people a message, though, some good tricks that you'll see people doing a lot, if you want to get people hooked into your message, is these things about alliteration, repeating similar sounds. I mean, I don't want you to do catchphrases too much or sound bites in the office, but it can hook people a little bit, like Winston Churchill's never give in, never, 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 and nothing great or small, da, 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 da. But N, repeated sounds. So alliteration can help. Reversals, don't ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, the JFK speech, or Margaret Thatcher, you turn if you want to, the lady's not for turning. 3 points is all we ever need, and the thing I love about Tony Blair is he was in office for so long, but he's only known, really, in terms of sound bites, for one word repeated 3 times. Education, education, education. And rhetoric, I have a dream. So we've all heard that speech, but actually very few people have listened to it in its entirety, and generally he says that 40 times throughout the speech. And he didn't just do it once on the March of Washington. He did it for many, many months. So I just want you to think about ways that you can start to hook people into remembering your ideas and making yourself just slightly more available to the audience. I just want to finally really start to look at the difference between men and women. And one of the things that they looked at, and it's research that's been going since the 60s, both women and men have been part of these research teams and have just looked at generally the way that men and women communicate differently and in similar ways. Do we have the exact same brain cells, men and women? Exact same brain cells, number of brain cells? Depends on the individual. But generally we do. Yeah, we do. Men's brains are bigger, generally, but women's brains are a lot more compact, so a lot of people say more efficient. They're much more centered around the communication areas, plus you got that new protein they discovered that allows you to speak a lot more. Don't forget also as well, there is other things, nature versus nurture, all that kind of stuff. But these are just some generalizations, and you will find that women will adopt the sort of male behaviors and men the female behaviors in terms of what's called conversational styles. There's 2 conversational styles they looked at. And the first one I'm going to give to the guys, and it's status. So they're looking at the world as how are we different? So it's a nice jacket. I got a jacket. My jacket's different than yours. Yeah? It's a jacket. So I'm saying, I could say my jacket's better than yours. Or, right, I could do that. Wouldn't be very nice, but I could do it. Yes? Oh, don't tell me you guys don't play status. I see it all the time. Or I could say, that jacket's fairly nice. It's nicer than mine. The thing with status, and particularly young boys, do they play indoors or outdoors? So outdoors generally. In large groups or with one best friend? They prefer groups, and it's usually centered around an activity. And what are they trying to establish doing that activity? So whether it's climbing a tree, kicking a ball, or breaking some windows, it's usually who can do it better than the other. Now, if you are a better dresser than me, which we've already established, that's okay. As long as I know where I am in the rankings. Things only get interesting when I say, actually, you and I've been, you've been the better dresser. Just you wait tomorrow. I'm gonna wear a new outfit, and now I'm challenging the status. But when you're looking at little boys, they don't look at each other. Anyone have small boys at the moment? No, yes, no, yeah, no? Yeah? Good? Is he looking at you? At times? Well, also what happens is boys are trained by their mothers to look at them. Look at me and tell me the truth. A signal, this is kind of going a little bit off course, but a signal that someone, a male, may be telling you something that is untrue is the fact that he is looking at you. Oh yeah, no, I was with the guys all night. I was with the guys all night. Don't you worry, I was with the guys all night. Because then naturally the guy would go, yeah, I can't remember what I did last night. We'd look away and come back. But one of the big challenges in the workplace is that if you're looking at a guy and you want to get his attention, or you're on a table full of senior managers, they won't even be looking at each other. We don't tend to. There's a guy there, right? Yeah, he looked away within 2 seconds. We'll play the game again? See, now we're playing the game. And it's a good game. But as soon as we lock eyes, it's who's going to look away first or establish status. But it can be quite challenging when they're not looking at you. So that's status. Connection is the next one. So connection is generally seen in women, can be seen in men. You will see status in women. You'll see it in the stock market and all that stuff. You will see young girls playing with boys, playing outdoors, all that stuff. But it's just generalizations. This is looking at how are we the same. So it's I like your jacket. It's a nice jacket. I got a jacket too. And what the research was looking at, they'd get the young girls together. First of all, they'd move the chairs together. They'd look at each other. They both have a doll. You got a doll. I got a doll. The dolls were completely different. Well, at least we both got dolls. And so it's about sharing and about building that rapport and looking for similarities. And eye contact was there for connection. The challenging thing that you're going to get with status is status generally plays the game devil's advocate. So if they hear a new idea, they'll go, it's a rubbish idea. What made you think of that idea? You think that's a good idea? What about the budgetary constraints on that? Have you talked to facilities? Oh, it's never going to work. Do I necessarily think it's a bad idea? No, I'm just playing devil's advocate to try and understand it and test it out. And that's what you'll see with status quite a lot. But what was happening, especially with this research, is that a lot of the, not just women, but people who are used to speaking in that connection way would withdraw the idea. Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. Or when the people were in these positions where they had to have authority, that they were asking people to do things and apologizing a lot. So serial apologies are called the double bind. So I need that report by 5 o'clock. I'm so sorry. I know it's only gone. It's coming up to 1 o'clock. I'm so sorry. Do you mind? I'm sorry. So lowering the status. With what I want you to think about is that actually you can still connect with status, but just don't be afraid to be slightly more direct and clear with people at times if you're finding that it's a bit of a challenge. So when we're looking at these both areas, just start to be aware of the challenges between status versus connection. And what I'd like you to do, it's a bit of a strange exercise, but you can stay seated for this, is I'd like you to look to the person next to you. All right, you don't have to say hello. They may or may not even be looking at you. But what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to look at them and lower their status. This one, people find this easier because it's a bit silly. It's a bit of a game. You'd never usually do this. So it's kind of like looking down your nose at them. Yeah? Yeah? And they can do it back to you. It doesn't matter. It's almost like someone, emitted a fart or something. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah? So you're lowering their status. Good. Now let you do just the opposite. So this is the problem if you're always playing status, is you may err on the side of kind of going. Phew. Now that you do the opposite, is try and raise their status. That can kind of seem a bit needy at times. Or you have to be careful because it seems like flirtation. But you're trying to be a bit more encouraging. So are you raising the status or are you lowering the... So go on, be nice. You already looked at them like they farted. Look at them like they brought you a box of chocolates or something. And that's the balance that I want you to think a little bit about. That at times, and most people think a little bit more in numbers. I always go 1 to 10. 1 is low status. 10 is high status. Do we want to be like a 9, 10? Like really like that? Those are the people who look at you like, you just did that thing. Do you want to be a 9, 10 in the workplace? No. And what do you do if someone is a 9, 10? Because you will get those people. You see them in society a lot. The queen, by the way, who has the highest status, doesn't play it. Doesn't need to. But what would you do if someone was quite high? Play off of them. Back up. Play a 1. I'll just go clean the toilets. Yeah. Good. Back off, but I stay at 5. Does that make sense? So stay at 5. So you still have to own your own status. You still have the right to be there. As I said before, you have the right to speak, the right to be there. So yeah, you stay at 5, especially if they're very high status in terms of that number, then they're very status conscious. So they need people to have high status around them. So I play like a 7. I don't go around going, Paul, play 7. I just kind of think, okay, well, I'll just lengthen this. I'm here, but yeah, I'm just going to back off a little bit. But what if someone is quite vulnerable? You see this with nurses and doctors, with people who are quite vulnerable in care homes and stuff, or little children as well. You might lower your status slightly, right? Because they've just fallen down and hurt themselves or something. Or someone at work is in a bit of distress, they're a bit panicky, a bit anxious, or the printer's got jammed and they got to get the tender out and all that stuff. You'd probably lower your status. And this is really where great leaders live, is they're able to, use status maturely, but also a bit more flexible with their behavior and also able to connect. Because I don't want you to think it's like zodiac signs. One's better than the other. Everyone's always competing with these zodiac signs. It's about using both styles and just being aware that you may not see the world through status lenses, but other people will. And also, simple things you can do is just be aware when people are playing devil's advocate with you and just ask them if they think it's a good idea, or you're not having to apologize for asking people to do things, but using number 5 or number 6 as a way of doing it. And if you don't know what to do, sometimes just breathing, lengthening the spine, just kind of calming down, go away, think about it, come back and speak to them, can help. And again, those power gestures or power positions, if you don't feel it, can just help change the chemistry just to give you a bit more confidence. But remember, if you don't speak, you won't improve. I loathe to talk about communication skills because it's not something I can tell you to do. It's something you have to practice when no one's looking. So practice at lunch when you're getting food and you're in the queue and you want to make sure that the person hears your order. Make sure that when you're in the restaurant you feel confident to ask for a refund or a new entree because this one isn't acceptable. Go back to those stores that sell you things that they don't work. These types of things can help you just practice. Call, and also your mobile phone. All of you have very strong voices as well, because I've seen it. I've seen it when people pick up the mobile phone. So I just want to remind you to, have a great rest of your day. I'm around to answer any questions and stuff. And again, as I said, I'm Paul DuBois from Canada. So thank you for your time. Hope to see you again soon. Take care. Thanks. Bye.